Hi, I'm Martin from Printer Potty. What we're going to be showing you in this video is how to install an external waste tank, in this case our Printer Potty LX2 kit, onto an Epson EcoTank ET-2650. The kit comes with the external waste tank, which is this one here, the tube extension there, a pair of plastic forceps, and also a pair of metal forceps. They are designed not to actually cut, they just hold things shut for us. In terms of other tools, I've also got a Phillips or a crosshead screwdriver, and with all that there, I'm now going to get on with the process of actually fitting this kit. There are two different ways to install an external waste tank on a printer like the ET-2650. The first one is the one that's in our printed instructions, and that's the first one we're going to show you. Now the first thing we want to do is actually stop the ink moving from the reservoirs, which are just here, through back and forth when we turn this printer on its front. Now in order to do that, what we do is use our plastic forceps to basically lock off the tubing. Because this particular unit doesn't have any way of actually stopping the ink or locking the ink flow, unlike an L800 for example, we actually need to do that manually, and that's what we've got these for. So you open up your carriage bay like this, and then what you're going to do is you're going to pinch the tubing like this, and with your plastic forceps put the forceps just above like that, so they're going to pinch, and then you lock them off so that your tubing looks like that. Okay, and what you do, tuck that under there and close the lid like that. Now that we've got the tubing locked off, the ink will not be able to flow back and forward to or from the print head, and that will stop a situation where you end up having to waste a load of ink to reprime the system. That should actually keep the system more or less stable. So now what we're going to do is put this printer on its front so that we can access the waste pads and the waste tube. Once we've got the printer rotated round so that we can see the back of the printer, we then lift it up and onto its front like this. Now that the printer is on its front, we need to remove two screws. One is located here in the center, and the other is located there, just over to the right. So with your crosshead screwdriver, remove one screw. I'm going to pop it in my tank, and the other screw is just located there. Like so. Then to remove this plastic panel here, what you do is bend it up towards the ceiling and then out like that. Then you put that down to one side. This then frees up our waste pad holder, so now we can slide that over to the right and gently remove it. Now this one is clean because it's never been used, but your one will probably be very soiled, so be careful taking this out. This then exposes this just here is our waste tube. So what we need to do is, using our forceps, we then take hold and extend it out a little, so it's sticking out approximately 1 centimetre, just under 1 centimetre extension. And what we do is, with it out to there, we lock our forceps like that to hold everything in position. You then need to remove the tubing. This is your extension, the short tension, and this is your long one. you are taking off this bit here with the arm on. So you now left with one short bit, one long bit. This bit has to go in to the tube just there. You stabilize by holding the tube, and then you get the connector into the tube like that, just enough. Then you disconnect the forceps. Now, the way this works, the collar around the tube will actually act as a brace to push the fitting from this further in to the internal waste tube. So long as your waste tube is part way in like this, you can now push gently. I'm now going to ever so gently push that tube back in, and you just gently push it against the thing to push the tube further on. As you can see, that's going on a bit further. A bit more. And it is on. Okay, so we're just going to push that home like that, like so, and we're good to go. Towards the thing. You son of a... This part, before we thread our extension tube in, we just reinstall this part back into the printer, like so, like that. 4.5mm drill bit. I'm going to drill our hole. Now we install our extension through our hole internally, and now we reconnect the tube to our internal extension part before finally pulling all of that taut. This part, throw it away. It's not needed anymore unless you're planning on reinstalling it because you're going to sell the printer later on. You no longer need this particular part. Okay, so that's done, and that's it. The Printer Potty extension tube, which is the hard part, is now installed with the tube running from the waste tube, internal waste tube here, to your extension. Now that the extension tube is all installed, what we do now is return the printer to its standard resting position, upright. We lift the tube up and turn the printer around like that. We then need to disengage the plastic forceps that we installed in here. So we lift that up, lift the forceps and disengage them as before. Remove those and just massage the tube where the join was like that. Make sure there is no lasting kinking that would stop the ink from flowing, and then we're done. So that's removed, and finally we install our external tank. Now with the tank, your valve is at this end, so what you do, you also have a vent hole in the lid of your Printer Potty kit. What you do is you make sure the vent and the valve are in the same area, close the lid up like that, Last thing to do is to actually connect your tubing with your tank like this. Make sure the tube clamp, which is here, make sure that this is unlocked, so it's not like this. When you unlock it, make sure that there is no kink in it. If there is a kink in it, what you can do is go and get some hot water, steaming hot water, and then just dip it in to that hot water, let it heat up for a few seconds, and then it'll unkink and return to its normal shape. Okay, so that's the installation for the ET-2650 as we've shown you in our printed guide. So we've shown you one way to install your Printer Potty on this ET-2650. We're now going to show you a different way where we don't tip the printer. So we leave it like this. Now the only way to do this, the waste ink pads and the pad holder and everything are located in this section here. So in order to access them, particularly when this is all filled with ink, it means you've got to pull the printer over to the edge like this, and as you can see, it's very unstable. So what you have to do in order to be able to work on it reasonably well is either A, have a spare person who comes along who holds it down and doesn't get distracted, or if you find a counterweight like this, put it on the edge over the desk to hold it in place, so you've got a far more stable working environment. Okay. Now there's no guarantees this is going to work. We always recommend you have somebody else helping you, but this is a way of doing it. What we're going to do first, before we stick it down over the edge, is remove the two screws that we need to be able to get the waste pad out, or the waste pad holder out. Okay, so those two screws are out. We then bring it over to the edge like that, and as before, pull out in the center here and slide down like that. That then takes that part off. We can now spin the printer outward like so, so we then have access. This is the pad holder here. What we need to do now is slide that over to the right, so towards the center, and then it will drop out like that. That then gives us access, as before, to the waste tube. Because the area we want to work in is located just here, and that's inherently less stable when it's further out, what we can do is now push the printer a little bit more onto the table to make it a little bit more stable and still give us access to this area here. Worth noting, this is going to look a lot harder because I'm trying to film this in a way that you can actually see what's going on. When you actually come to do it, especially if you've got somebody else standing by, you can create more space. You can think about how you're going to do this in a slightly easier fashion. So yeah, don't be put off too much by all of the shenanigans and the cursing that I'm going to cut out of the audio track, but don't be put off. It is doable. You just have to take your time. So I've got my forceps. I'm now going to pinch that tube so it's stabilized and to allow me to stick our small extension into the internal waste tube. So I'm going to do that now as best I can without, move this out a tiny bit, without occluding your view. Okay, that's one part. Then I need this bit here, that part to go in, and as before, I need to get that in. Now you are not going to be able to see what I'm doing because there simply isn't a way to film this successfully while showing you. Okay, but you should be able to see that I've gotten that most of the way in. Push it a little bit more. going to disconnect the forceps and gently push that connector onto the internal tube a little bit more. So that it goes on. Sorry, I'm including a view again. Okay, so by pushing that in to there whilst it's most of the way into the tube, that pushes it on even further and locks it into position. So last thing to do is just push that up. Now we pull this back out to here. We now reinsert this part. As before, and I can push that onto the side a bit better at this point. I take my short screw, install it in there. Then drill the hole here through this bit with a 4.5mm drill bit. Take my extension tube that I released earlier and push that through like so, and then connect two pieces, so this piece here and this piece here, push those together and then gently pull through until that is sorted. And that's it. That is the waste tube installed without turning the printer over and without having to clamp the tubes internally. So once we've done that, what we do is just move it back onto the desk. We take our counterweight off, take our tank and connect to the external tube like so. So that is how you install a Printer Potty waste ink kit using a counterweight and keeping the printer stable. Now, as you saw in that video, it was incredibly difficult to actually video the process where we stuck the barbed connector from our extension into the waste tube in the printer, because there is limited space and the angles are very difficult and everything else. However, I'm hoping that you saw enough that you were able to see how it all worked and be able to replicate yourself. The key to this is patience and just taking your time. Hi, I'm Martin from Printer Potty, and it's not even on. It helps if you turn your camera on before you start doing stuff to the camera. Right,